Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 219, Lysis 211, A to C. Lysis has just whispered to Socrates to say to Menexenus the things that he is saying to Lysis. Not the things that have been said to Lysis while Menexenus wasn't here, but to say whatever he says to Lysis now, also to Menexenus. Kai ego epon, tautamen su auto eres Lysi, pantoscar proseches ton nun, panumen un efe. And I said, you will say these things to him, Lysis, for you completely paid attention. Absolutely, he said. To pay attention in Greek is to hold forward one's intelligence, nous. Socrates is effectively entrusting to Lysis the art of conversation, as if Lysis has learnt everything there is to learn from Socrates and is now in a position to take over. When Lysis says absolutely, he only means that, yes, he has been paying attention. It doesn't mean that he really does want to take over. Pero toinon endego, apum nemonusai auta hotimalista, hina tuto sophos panta epes. Try then, I said, to recall them, the words, as much as possible, so that by this, by remembering, you might say all things clearly. What Socrates is recommending here is a very bad form of dialectic. You should not hold a conversation in which you simply regurgitate things that you have heard from someone else. By the way, the verb for remember here is apomnemonio, which is to make a memory from, while the verb for recollection in Meno, the dialogue Meno, was anamimnesko, ana up, to raise a memory up from the eternal spirit which has seen everything in this world and the last. Here, Socrates is asking Lysis to remember something that was said in the dialogue. This is actually what Socrates does in Meno as well. When he tells Meno to recall anything, it's actually from the dialogue. So there isn't really much difference between ana and apo here. Up and from, it doesn't make much difference. The idea is that you have a memory and use it. You may be wondering how you should have a conversation, and I would say to you that you know how to do it. Most of the time, you do know how to hold a conversation. It doesn't involve learning an entire argument by heart. Andeti auton epilathe, authisme anerestai hotan entuches proton. But if you forget something of them, the words, ask me again whenever you encounter, in other words, me first. If Lysis took this seriously, he would ask Socrates immediately. But Lysis has other ideas. Ala poieso effetaut o Socrates, panus fodra iuisti. Ala ti alo auto lege, hinakai ego akuo, heos an oikade hore he apienai. Well, I will do this, he said, O Socrates, very much so. Know well. In other words, you can be sure that I will ask you again and again later, sometime. But say to him something else, so that I too may hear, until it's time to go home. The effect of this request is for Lysis to take himself out of the conversation. He'll just listen to it, he won't participate in it, while he hears something new as Socrates talks to Menexenus. by adding the point about talking with Menexenus until it's time to go home, Lysis has ensured that he won't have to talk at all. At least he thinks he's ensured that he won't have to talk at all. Lysis is virtually admitting that he is not yet ready to be entrusted with the art of conversation. I'm not really sure that he understands that conversation is an art, a techne. At this time, dialectike was practiced only by Socrates, so far as we know. Allah repoien tauta indigo, epidegikai su kelues. Well, it's necessary to do this, I said, since even you command. Socrates has put himself in the position of one who takes orders from others, as if he is incapable of making a conversation on his own. He has to be told how to do it by the expert, who in this case is Lysis, apparently. Again, needless to say, this isn't how we should converse. Conversations are a free exchange of ideas between willing participants. We've seen before already in this dialogue that Socrates gets his own way by appearing to give in to the wishes of other people. Allah hora hopos epikureses moi anme elenchen epichere ho Menexenus. Euk oista hoti eristikos estin? But see how you will protect me if Menexenus tries to refute me. Don't you know that he is eristikos? Eris is strife. Eristikos is someone who deals with strife, and this is particularly to do with strife in words. The eristike techne is something that sophists taught to help people win debates. The idea was that you can beat people in argument. The way to guarantee a victory is to use underhand anti-logical techniques, usually consisting of wordplay and the use of the excluded middle. You would ask someone if they are one thing or the opposite of that thing, when the reality is somewhere in the middle, and because the opponent is required to choose one of the two extremes, he will lose. A famous example is, do you learn what you don't know or what you do know? And if you answer that it is what you do know, this is a ridiculous answer because you know already and you don't learn what you already know. While if you say that you learn what you don't know, then the question would then be, how do you learn what you don't know? You won't know that that is what you are actually learning because you don't know it. The middle ground is that we already know things and we build on what we know. And this is excluded in the eristic questioning. How do people win in an argument? You need an audience. And when the audience laughs at one of the participants, we all know that that participant has lost. So an eristician can actually aim simply at making the audience laugh at his opponent without even getting to the argument itself. The eristician also has other ways to undermine the opponent's credibility even before the argument begins. The sophist Thrasymachus tries to do this in Republic, where he sneers at Socrates, saying, oh, he's using his usual eironeia, which everyone now considers to be irony. This is Socratic irony. This is the only place in all the dialogues where there is eroneia, but in fact it means lying. And Thrasymachus is preparing the audience to expect Socrates to lie. The dialogue which dramatizes eristics and shows just how easy it is even for young boys to pick up eristics is the dialogue Euthydemus. So when Socrates calls Menexenus an eristikos, it doesn't mean that he has actually become an eristician, a professional debater, but he still may actually be good at eristics. He could have picked it up quite easily by listening to other people practicing eristics. On the other hand, we may see in this dialogue that he isn't an eristikos at all, but he's just saying it to require Lysis to enter the conversation, if need be, when Socrates finds himself being attacked by Menexenus. Naima diaefe, svodrege, diatauta toikai bulomaise auto dialegestai. By Zeus, he said, very much so. That is, Lysis is very aware that Menexenus is an eristikos. It's precisely because of this that I want you to converse with him. So Lysis has elegantly found a way to remain outside of the future conversation. Hine endego kategelastos genomai, uma diaefe al hina auton kolasis. I said, so I'll become a laughingstock? No, by Zeus, he said, but in order for you to punish him. Socrates' question is technically valid because in eristic debate, one of the participants does have to become a laughingstock. If we are to believe our sources, boys enjoyed listening to Socrates embarrass his opponents as they saw them, even though Socrates isn't actually an eristician. If Lysis doesn't expect Socrates to be the laughingstock, it means that he does expect Menexenus to become the laughingstock, given that the argument will be eristic. Socrates is the one who put this idea into his head, that eristics will be involved, and Lysis is looking forward to seeing Menexenus embarrassed or made to look ridiculous. And this is what he means by wanting to see Menexenus punished. We saw earlier that Ctesippus would make fun of his friend Hippothales, and yet he is here helping Hippothales. And if this is a deliberate literary parallel, Lysis wishes to help Menexenus by seeing him mocked.